Hello, hello. Hey, I'm all thumbs today in launching YouTube. So I'm just going to take a minute and let some folks gather because A, I'm early, and B, this is, I think, the third attempt. Um, Good morning from Delaware, says Mary. All right, Mary, you found me. I think we could just be here together right now. Looks like maybe 3 to 4 inches. I Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing for me, because I joke that my house is in a microclimate, is getting out of the driveway. So I didn't have any difficulty today, but I'm never sure what it's really like until I get beyond my own drive. Um, so I drove in on the Schuylkill Expressway this morning, slowly, but I was in a Jeep and I had no difficulty whatsoever. I don't know how many inches were already on the ground. It looked to me to be like 4 to 5. Um, it was not, how about this? It was not the storm of the century. I didn't wake up and say, oh my God, look at that snow outside. So TC is sending me notes. TC, I'm going to get back to you in a bit. Hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. So everybody doesn't hear the dings all the time. Yeah, anyway, so here's an interesting question. This is not what I intended to speak about, but what the hell, as people are gathering. Question for you. And if you're capable of sending me an emoji, because that'll be easier for me to read on the scroll. This is a legitimate question that I'm wrestling with right now. And it's really the call of my producer. How much weather do I have to do on CNN today? In other words, my show is booked. The guests are ready to go. I have what I consider to be 4 interesting issues. I've said before that when all is said and done, the real estate on a Saturday for me is just so confined. I probably get 46 minutes or so in order to deliver content. The rest is commercial. It breaks down to 4 segments or 5 if they're very short. How much weather should we do today? Because here's what I'm up against. I'm going to turn my camera or try to. Like here, look at what I'm looking at right now. Okay, that's a live shot of CNN. So Brian Todd is out right in the midst of the Jersey Shore. It looks like, 18 inches of snow. He's getting blown around. It's a legitimate story. It's a big story, and I like we're all. It's like that Progressive commercial. We've all become our parents, and we're all interested in the weather. But I only get 4 blocks a week. So how much should I do of the weather? I could do the whole show on weather. What do you think? None, 0, says Chris Max. Cynthia, very little. Lisa, 0. Mary, don't bother. Barbara, none. Another Barbara, nada. No weather, says Tank. People can look out their doors. We've got snow in ABQ. What's ABQ? It can't be Albuquerque, can it? None, 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 none. Frank Harry, none. Jamal, 0. Nope, 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 nope. All right, I hope Catherine is watching because she's my executive producer and she called me a couple of minutes ago and she said, do you want to do the weather? I said, it's your call. I don't know. Go 5 alarm, full John Coleman. Not so much, none. Just do the broadcast outside. Don't say a word about it. No weather. Right, but Chris says CNN has been covering it and will continue to do so. But here's the dilemma that I face, and I'm no expert in any of this. I'm sure that there are people who are very knowledgeable who make these calls. But if right now, and I can still see the monitor behind me, right now I'm watching Brian Todd. He looks like he's on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, getting blown around and the snow's falling and so forth, state of emergency. The sort of people who are watching CNN right now, I'm just trying to think about this logically. The sort of people who are watching CNN right now, and when I say sort of people, I mean they are people interested in the weather. So if all of a sudden I come on at 9 a.m. Philly time, no weather, don't the people who are already there pick up the clicker and say, hey, I was interested in the weather, and they leave me. Or are there people right now who are like, oh my God, all this weather? Yeah, I get it. Okay, 4 to 6 inches, a foot of snow in Boston, whatever it may be. Now tell me something else. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. So you can mention brought to you through the current blizzard. Were they staying anyway? I don't know. I have no idea. We get a bump. I'm going to sound braggadocious when I say this, and I am. But at 9 a.m., we get a bump. There are people who all of a sudden tune in to CNN who have not been watching CNN when my show begins. I study the numbers every week. So maybe they know that I'm not a weather guy. Anyway, tune in and see how much I do of the weather. Let me tell you what I do intend to talk about today in those 4 blocks. I'm not doing Ukraine because I feel like nothing has really changed in the overnight. It seems like there's a schism between what Ukraine is saying and what the Americans are saying. And it's like President Zelensky thinks that Biden is the one who is sounding the alarm bells unnecessarily, but there's really nothing new with Ukraine, so I'm not doing it. I'm mindful of all of the violence. I've talked about it on radio. That didn't make the cut today. I'll tell you what I am doing. I'm doing, and this is my survey question today, I am doing the Great Resignation. I am doing the subject of why are 1 out of 8 men in the prime of their working lives not working and voluntarily checking out? Why are so many not working? Record numbers, proportionally speaking. And Nicholas Eberstadt wrote a book on this subject. Interestingly, he wrote the book 6 years ago, and he's only now getting his 15 minutes of fame because the things that he forecast a couple of years ago have gotten even worse. The Wall Street Journal wrote about this in a column titled The Underside of the Great Resignation. And I'm asking as a survey question today, is it because of government transfer payments, meaning the government has been writing so many checks, they've made it easy for people not to work, or have there been structural economic changes? But some of the data in terms of setting this up. A record 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs in November. In December, the labor force participation rate of those 16 and over was just 61.9%. You have got employers going to incredible lengths trying now to lure people to work. Restaurant owners offering shorter work weeks, life insurance, mental health services, college tuition, and more paths to career advancement. They're giving out free Spotify subscriptions, adding nursing stations for lactating employees, and promising signing bonuses and free food to anybody off the street who fills out an application. And then we've got great anecdotal information. A Chick-fil-A in Western Pennsylvania giving employees lavish gifts, among them a new car, a month's rent or mortgage payment, $1,000 cash, Steelers tickets, and big screen TVs. How can that be true? Restaurant jobs advertised on ZipRecruiter, one of my advertisers, purely coincidentally, truly. Restaurant jobs advertised on ZipRecruiter in 2021 received only about 18 applicants. That's an average. How about in 2019? 61. How are folks who are saying, I quit, I'm not going to work, providing for themselves? I don't understand. Were the enhanced unemployment benefits that great that they could afford to do so? In 1961, labor force participation for prime-aged men was 96.9%. By November of 2021, the seasonally adjusted rate was 88.2%. That's a huge swing. Right now, nearly 1 out of 8 men in their prime not working. Staying out of work, even during good times, has become an American tradition. So the Great Resignation is something that I want to talk about, and the survey question today asks, which is it? This is the question that the economists all wrestle with. Is it a function of too much government aid having been paid, or something structural has changed in the economy? Do you know that yesterday's survey question, which was my no confidence vote on Dr. Anthony Fauci, we had like 10,000 plus people who voted on it, and it was overwhelmingly much higher than the national average. I found that fascinating. Much higher than the national average. The people who went to my website and responded about Dr. Fauci gave him a vote of confidence, which was interesting. And I'm one of them. I have the misgivings that I described on radio yesterday, but I have them. Okay, love this issue too. So we all remember the trial of Derek Chauvin in connection with the killing of George Floyd. He was convicted. He's been sentenced, and is serving time, 22 years, something like that. How about the 3 police officers who were on the scene with Chauvin and didn't intervene? What criminal exposure should they have? Because that trial is underway right now, and I don't think it's getting the attention that it deserves. And 2 of the 3 had just started. I'll tell you the story on television today, but I want to say that one of them was in his 3rd day and the other in his 4th day. And I mean, I know hindsight is 2020 when you look at that video and you say, with these appalling facts, why didn't somebody do something? But how about the whole dynamic of Chauvin being the superior officer, having trained one of them? Is it realistic to think, here's the question, is it realistic to think that someone 3 or 4 days on the job at that scene watching their superior would intervene and say to their boss, hey, get off that guy? I don't know. It's an interesting question. You would hope so, right? I mean, you would hope that they'd walk up and maybe because that whole crowd is around and so forth, and they're concerned about the situation getting out of hand, lean in. Hey, Chief, he doesn't look to me like he's breathing. Hey, Chief, do you think maybe now we should? I mean, one of the guys asked to roll him over twice. So I'll talk about that with Christy Lopez, who teaches at Georgetown's law school on exactly these issues, these types of policing issues. I'm very excited that Indra Nooyi, who was the first ever president and chairman of PepsiCo, is going to be my guest. I love this book. She was fabulous on radio. You can watch on my YouTube channel a great interview where we kind of got off on a tangent because at the outset she said she heard my bumper music and she commented on Steelers Wheel. I'm like, wow, this woman is such like a brilliant dynamo, glass ceiling breaker, and she's knowledgeable of her classic rock. And then we started talking about Heart, of all things, and whether Heart has a better version of Stairway to Heaven than Led Zeppelin. Anyway, she's a pistol. And I'm thrilled to get her on the program today to talk about her story. But maybe in a little unusual programming decision, I want, of course, to talk about COVID. And the angle that I'm going to use to talk about COVID is Sarah Palin dining out. I'm really taken with this story, and given the amount of attention it's received, I'm not the only one. You know that her defamation trial was supposed to begin against the New York Times, postponed because she tested positive. And then after she had tested positive, she went to dinner in New York City. She went to dinner in New York City last Saturday night, the night that I had done a commentary on exactly her case. So to be literal, it was Sunday that her lawyer notified the court that she had tested positive. Saturday night, she goes to dinner, and there's a violation of the New York dining rules because she's famously unvaccinated. Nevertheless, she goes and eats at this restaurant. The restaurant should not have allowed her to eat there because everybody's required to show proof of vaccination. So she ate Saturday night at this restaurant. Sunday, her lawyer notifies the court that she's tested positive. The trial gets postponed. Wednesday night, she goes back to the same restaurant. Okay, Wednesday, clearly by now, she's tested positive, knows she's positive. She's not in quarantine. She's back at the restaurant. Brazen, right? And you know what's interesting? Having grown up as a Flyers fan, I remember Ron Duguay from the New York Rangers. He was a handsome guy. You remember Duguay? You remember Dennis Potvin? Remember what the fans used to chant about Dennis Potvin? Another tangent. So anyway, people are like talking about Palin dining out, knowing on Wednesday night that she tested positive. Why would she do that? And the trial lawyer in me has a theory. Because, if I were her lawyer, my first instinct would be, don't go out in public when you're positive with COVID. The last thing we need is a story to be written about when we want unpolluted jurors. But here's my take. My take is she probably knows that even though the New York Times did her wrong, they wrote something false and defamatory about her. She's a public figure, so that's not enough. Even though the New York Times did her wrong, she probably knows the odds are against her at trial in federal court in New York. But she's playing for bigger stakes. She wants the law of the land on defamation not to be New York Times versus Sullivan, but to be Palin v. New York Times. This is all about getting that case to the Supreme Court of the United States, where Justices Gorsuch and Thomas have already said they want to take a look at New York Times versus Sullivan. So Sarah Palin is playing long ball. And that is what I take away from her brazenness at dining out at a popular Upper East Side eatery, knowing it's going to get on, page 6 of the New York Post. She doesn't care. It's okay to lose at the trial level because she wants to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. That's what I got today. That is what I got today. Palin doesn't care about anyone other than herself. Imagine that. Omaha Steaks. Right. Lori B says, we're not worried about Palin. We're worried about the people that she didn't care about exposing. I mean, look, I saw in the Wednesday night, she was at a streetery. She was on the sidewalk, but in a protected area. And the people with whom she was eating, they weren't masked, but the waiter was. I mean, how odd, how reversed is that? Palin has COVID. She's eating. The waiter serving her is properly masked. Did he know? Did he know that he was? I mean, many people who are walking around don't even know they have COVID. She knew she had COVID, or she'd have been on trial. And here's some poor waiter serving her in close proximity to her. He knows she's positive. But again, step back. Why? I mean, in some parts of the country, that's going to be well received. Michelle Bachmann was on some cable show in the last 24 hours praising Sarah Palin for dining out with COVID. So in some parts of the country, that's fine. That's acceptable. That's cool. Way to go, Sarah. But you're about to try a case where you need to win all the jurors. I don't know what the rule is in the Southern District for civil litigation. It might be a 5-6 rule. But the point is, she needs all those jurors on her side. Why piss off at least half the jury pool with the story about you dining out with COVID? It's because this is not about the trial. This is about the Supreme Court. All right, I got to roll. I'll read all these comments later. Thank you so much. The content on the YouTube page, do you like the new cameras? Have you looked at the nearly HD level that we've brought to this Monday through Friday? And share the newsletter with a friend. Please share the newsletter with a friend. Thank you so much for tuning in. TC After Dark, all the things I love to promote. So thank you. Shovel. See ya.